Welcome back to the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. You're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day listening to who? The always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas. I'm a multimedia journalist and I'm a graphic designer. So please go check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com. On there, you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. If you want to follow more content by me, just follow me on Twitter at CreatorThomas24 for my personal account, or just look up Locked On Diamondbacks on both Twitter and Instagram for the podcast handle. Now, for today's show, we are doing part 2 of free agents the Diamondbacks should consider. We did part 1 yesterday. Today's part 2. We're looking at MLB's top 50 free agents according to MLB Trade Rumors, and we're going to be doing a little synopsis off the blurb they've written for each guy, talk about projected salaries, pros and cons for these players, why the D-backs should go after them or why they shouldn't. These are targets that I think the D-backs should go after. They don't have to take my opinion, of course, but I think it would be pretty nice if they considered it. So we're going to be talking a whole bunch of free agency and offseason talk today, but thank you for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every day. This podcast is not possible without you listening, subscribing, sharing, reviewing. So thank you for doing all that. So because of all that, I'm able to do this podcast for you. So thank you so much for that. But now let's jump right into the podcast, breaking down part 2, free agents the Diamondbacks should consider.
Locked On Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Millard Thomas of Locked On Diamondbacks still here, and the hot stove has officially started. We see Eduardo Rodriguez getting like a 5-year, $80 million deal from the Tigers. So D-backs, there are bad teams out there spending money. The Angels signed Noah Syndergaard to a $21 million deal. It was either $20 or $21 million one-year deal today as well. And the Blue Jays re-upped Jose Barrios to like a 7-year, $130 million deal. But the Tigers and Angels, two bad teams from last season, putting big money into pitchers. D-backs, you might have to be next because I'm getting controversial right off the bat. I'm not wasting any time. This first name is someone that everyone's going to roll their eyes at when I say it, but I think it's a possibility, and that is Clayton Kershaw, who falls number 33 on the top 50 free agents. Remember, we're starting from the bottom, working our way to the top. He's projected a 1-year, $20 million deal, and Kershaw, we already know his resume, 3 Cy Young awards. And the thing with Kershaw is, of course, he's in the decline. He averaged 90.7 miles per hour on his fastball this season. It's a little bit lower than 2020, but still right in the range from 2018 to 2019. Kershaw, of course, was huge in the 2020 championship run for the Dodgers. 2.93 ERA over 5 starts. And the thing with Kershaw is, of course, no one's going to think he's actually going to come to the D-backs because he's a Dodger, NL West rival. But I think we could have said the same thing for another aging NL West pitcher just a few years ago, just a couple seasons ago, and that is Madison Bumgarner, who decided to sign with the D-backs. So maybe it's not out the realm of possibility that Kershaw does it either. He dealt with health issues this past season. He started the season late. He wasn't able to finish the season because of a forearm issue, and the Dodgers didn't extend him a qualifying offer. So it basically feels like he might go back to the Dodgers or maybe try his way with the Texas Rangers. But if he's already going to go to a bad team, why not come to the Arizona Diamondbacks? Because here are the pros for why he should come here or why the D-backs should go after Kershaw. Number one, their new pitching coach, Strom, is great with aging pitchers. Don't forget what he did for Justin Verlander's career. Verlander was already an all-time pitcher by the time he got to Houston, but his career literally went to another level when he got with Strom. His strikeouts per 9 jumped by like 4 strikeouts per 9. So when you work with Strom, you get considerably better. And there's still some underlying numbers that show you Kershaw is still a good pitcher right now. He still had a 3.55 ERA this past season, 2021. Still pretty damn good. Would have been pretty damn good on the D-backs rotation this year. 3 FIP, a 3.00 FIP, 29.5% strikeout rate is still elite, 4.3% walk rate still pretty good, 1.019 whip, a 178 average, and a 440 OPS allowed against lefties. Kershaw absolutely dominant against lefty batters. And again, just another all-time NL West pitcher coming to the D-backs would just be a fantastic story for all D-backs fans out there. He may be an aging guy, but Kershaw can still get it done. And in this D-backs rotation, he would probably be a number 2 or number 3. But why? What are the negatives of Clayton Kershaw at this point of his career? Well, of course, he's old. He's in his mid-30s. He's probably going to want to play for a contender. So that's really not where the D-backs are going to be. But if he just wants to go team up with Madison Bumgarner and just give a big middle finger to the other NL West teams, especially the Dodgers, then he should come here. His home run percentage has been around 3.3% the last 5 years, around 3.3% the last 5 years. It was below 1.5% before that. So the last few years, his home run percentage allowed has ticked up a little bit. Could be looking for his last big deal. The D-backs, of course, don't like to spend money. Fastball slowing down, which makes sense. He would fit right into the staff with Bumgarner and Merrill Kelly, who don't throw hard already. In high leverage moments, Clayton Kershaw was not that good in 2021. 350 average allowed and 920 OPS allowed. That's not very good. And if the D-backs defense continues to struggle, there's going to be a lot of high leverage moments for Kershaw to work his way around. And also another clutch stat that Kershaw was not very good at that kind of surprised me. 2 outs, runners in scoring position, 277 average and 824 OPS allowed. Clayton Kershaw was not that good in the clutch stats metrics, which kind of surprised me. Plus the slowing down fastball, the rising home run rate, those are some big concerns for the D-backs. But considering Kershaw is still a pretty damn good pitcher and he would still be arguably the second best pitcher on this D-backs rotation, I think it would still be a pretty good idea if the D-backs could go out there and get him if he's not too much money. Plus, with their new pitching coach, he could really take Kershaw's late career to the next level. So I wouldn't be opposed to adding Kershaw to the D-backs rotation. I think it would be kind of fun and kind of interesting. Got Bumgarner there. We got Zach Allen, the stud. We got Bumgarner from the Giants. Let's add Kershaw from the Dodgers. And who else? Who else from these NL West teams want to come over? John Gray from the Colorado Rockies. Does he want to come over? So I would like to add Kershaw, 1, for the narrative, and number 2, because he's still a pretty damn good pitcher. Now, the second guy I want to talk about, and we're only going to do 2 guys per segment today because part 1 yesterday, I tried doing 3 guys per segment, and I realized my back was freaking against the wall with time. So we're not doing that today. I want to be a little bit more thoughtful, really spend time on these guys and really dive deep into the numbers. So the next guy we're going to talk about is Kyle Seeger, projected 2-year, $24 million deal, falls 31 on the top 50 free agents list. Blue Jays and Mets are projected to be interested. And among free agents, Marcus Simeon is the only guy to hit more home runs than the 35 Kyle Seeger hit. And it seems like Kyle Seeger wanted to go all out in the power department because he posted a career worst strikeout rate and batting average. So you don't like to see those 2 things for a guy in his mid-30s. But when I look at the free agent market, it's pretty weak, and Kyle Seeger is one of the best on here. He still had 35 home runs. If we're going to run through the pros and cons, he still had 35 home runs. He still had over 100 RBIs. His hard hit percentage for his career is 40%. His career exit velocity is 89.5 miles per hour. So for his career, this guy just crushes the advanced hard contact analytics. Career best home run percentage in 2019 and 2021 at 5.2%. Similar stats against righties and lefties. That I always like to see that whenever a pitcher or hitter is kind of the same against righties and lefties. I like to see that. I also like to see if you're just dominant against one side, that's okay too. But if you're also good or similarly good against both sides, I also like that. Either one can be a pro. It just depends on how you look at it. On the road, Kyle Seeger's numbers were pretty phenomenal. 261 average, 861 OPS. I like that more. I think looking at these players' road numbers are really important because if the guy is only good at home and terrible on the road, well, guess what? You're not going to be playing in Safeco next year. So the fact that he's actually better on the road, his numbers were terrible at home. They actually cratered at home. He was terrible when he had to play at the Mariner Stadium. But on the road, this dude put up all-star level numbers. So guess what? If he's in the D-backs uniform, he's never going to be playing in Mariner Stadium. So maybe he can have an even better season than he just had in 2021. And his clutch numbers, 308 average and 1015 OPS for runners in scoring position. That's exactly what the D-backs need. But what are some numbers that might turn the D-backs off? His strikeout percentage has been 19% or higher 3 of the last 4 seasons. So he strikes out around a fifth of the time the last 4 seasons. Contact percentage of all pitches and against strikes would have been one of the worst on the team last season. Just not very good straight contact hitter. Career OBP 321. He's in his mid-30s, so he might want to be playing for a contender at this point of his season. And because of the lack of talent in the third base market, he could be a hot commodity. So a team could give him a fat contract if they have a big need. But when I look at when I take everything in consideration, I think Kyle Seeger could be a better version of Eduardo Escobar. He's got the same power with a slightly better OBP, same level of defense. He doesn't have the versatility, but he's an above average third base defender. He strikes out probably a little bit less than Eduardo Escobar does, with slightly better hard rate of contact numbers, hard contact rate numbers, or however you want to say it. The hard contact numbers love Kyle Seeger. So because of all that, he's a power RBI producer, struggles to get on base repeatedly. That seems like Eduardo Escobar already, and I think he has a slightly higher season. I believe he has a slightly higher ceiling than Eduardo Escobar as well. Because of all that, again, one of those days I'm struggling to talk. So because of all that, all the stats I just said, I believe Kyle Seeger could be a better version of Eduardo Escobar. And if that turns out to be true, the D-backs should go after Kyle Seeger. The only thing that gives me a pause for concern is the money that other teams are going to throw out at him. And the D-backs are just not going to, unfortunately, be shelling out a lot of money this offseason. Now we'll get into some more very interesting free agent targets for the D-backs. But did you know this episode is brought to you by Built Bar? I love Thanksgiving, all the good food and treats and plenty of them, but maybe you want a yummy dessert but isn't so full of calories and sugar. It's the perfect time for Built Bars. Built Bar is the new holiday dessert. Feast on something delicious and feel good about it. One slice of pie has upwards of 300 calories, and that's on the low end. Most Built Bars are only 130 calories and only 4 grams of sugar with plenty of protein. Replace the coconut cream pie with coconut Built Bar. Go for a raspberry Built Bar instead of that raspberry pie. Lots of good flavors to replace any pie. Low calorie, low carb, low fat, high protein, covered in 100% real chocolate. Built is a great option for when you're hungry if Thanksgiving isn't coming soon enough. Go for a Built Bar or two. Share some at your family gatherings. It'll make things less awkward. Maybe Aunt Betty hasn't tried a Built Bar yet. New surprises all month. Limited time flavors arriving at Built.com regularly, so check this site often. There's nothing like a Built Bar Black Friday. Mark your calendar. Black Friday will be a huge event with all sorts of surprises. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCK15. You'll get 15% off your next order. Promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right. Let's get back into the pod, and let's move on with some more free agent targets for the Diamondbacks. And this next guy is another LA Dodger who probably has no chance of coming to the D-backs, but I don't care because I think this should be a realistic target for the D-backs, assuming he's not too expensive. That is Canley Jansen. Projected 2 years, $26 million, $13 million a year for a reliever is a lot. The D-backs will not be spending that amount of money, but I still want to talk about Canley Jansen because this guy has had a devastating cutter throughout the majority of his career. It's the reason he had a 2.08 ERA over his first 8 seasons in a Dodgers uniform. But the last few years, he's really started to cut that cutter back because players just have been able to jump on it, and he only threw his cutter around 58% in 2021. It was around 85 to 90%, basically pre-2017, pre-2018. But now it's down to just 58% in 2021. That's how often he's throwing it. Sinker around 26% of the time, slider around 15% of the time. So he's got a 3-pitch arsenal. His ERA back in 2019 was like a 3.77. It looks like the end was near for Canley Jensen, but he has started to reinvent himself, done it the last couple of years, and now he has an ERA back down to just 2.22 this past season. He looks good once again, and if we have to break down the pros and cons of why the D-backs need to go after Canley Jansen, we will do it, because in 2021, he had 11 strikeouts per nine, a 1.043 whip, a 3.08 FIP, and the lowest hits per nine and home runs per nine since 2016. This guy basically reinvented himself after having 2 seasons that looked like he was in the decline. He came back for a resurgent season in 2021, 38 saves. He looked really good this past season. And if you look at his inherited runners on the season, only 2 of them scored. 13% of all of his inherited runners scored. He had 16 inherited runners on the season. Only 2 of them scored. This guy, when he comes in with runners on the bases, he shuts down those innings. His strikeout percentage has been above 30% the last 3 seasons. He's devastating to righties and lefties equally. I looked it up. The OPS was like below 550 or something crazy against righties and lefties. And his away array is almost 2 points better than at home, which again, I like, because you're not going to be pitching in Dodger Stadium next season if you're in a D-backs uniform. So the fact that he's actually better on the road than at home gives me a lot of respect, or I guess I give a lot of respect to him for that. And also, he hasn't lost velo or spin on his pitches despite being in his mid-30s. His velocity and the spin rate on his pitches, I actually went to StatCast and tracked it. They've been the same. So the sticky stuff crackdown, the reason why opposing batters were starting to actually come after his cutter and start doing damage against it, wasn't because it wasn't as effective in terms of velocity or spin rate. It was just because he's probably thrown it 90% of the time for almost a decade, and players just saw it a ton and they finally caught up to it. So it's actually a positive to know that he's 34, 35 and hasn't lost velocity on those pitches. But if you have to do the cons for Canley Jansen, he is in his mid-30s. Like a lot of these guys, if you're in your mid-30s as an athlete, you probably don't want to go to a potential rebuilding team, especially when you're potentially looking for your last contract. So I don't know if he's going to come here. He had a 3.92 ERA when he had 0 days of rest. Well, guess what? The D-backs bullpen, if they go out there and get Canley Jansen, they're probably just going to be living around the margins in other areas. So they're probably going to need to go to Canley Jansen probably 50 out of 55 days. And he's just not as good when he has 0 days of rest. When he has between 1 and 3 days of rest, his ERA is below 2. It's 3.92 when he has 0 days of rest. I thought that was pretty interesting. His walk rate this past season, 13%, pretty high for a Canley Jansen. I didn't expect it to be that high. It's only 7.3 for his career, and his 66.6 strikeout percentage was the second lowest since his sophomore season. So throwing more balls and throwing less strikes, you don't like to see that for an aging pitcher. But the fact that he reinvented himself makes me less wary of those stats. He'll probably be too expensive for the D-backs to get. But with the rise in walks, I'm okay with that because his strikeout rate is still pretty deadly, pretty devastating. And the D-backs just don't have a back-end reliever. They don't have a closer. So the D-backs could get their hands on a Canley Jensen. I think that would be a tremendously huge addition to the back end of this bullpen. And I actually have another reliever that the D-backs should think about, Kendall Graveman, who falls number 28 on MLB Trade Rumors Top 50 free agents. Canley Jansen was number 29. Graveman projected 3 years, $27 million. Royals, Astros, and Dodgers projected to be interested. And Graveman, he's a ground ball heavy pitcher. He used to be a starter for the A's from 2015 to 2017. I found that fascinating at a 4.11 ERA during that time. But then he had Tommy John, a whole bunch of things happened. He ended up with the Mariners last season. In 2020, the 2020 shortened season ended up with the Mariners, and he didn't look that good with the Mariners. He started a lot of games for the Mariners in 2020, and then all of a season at the end of the year, they made him come out the bullpen. He was throwing 95. He looked pretty good. He came back this season, 2021, used him as a bullpen reliever full-time, and he just basically put it all together for the Mariners this past season. 0.82 ERA and a 28% strikeout rate with the Mariners prior to being traded to the Astros. Now, when he did go to the Astros, his numbers slipped quite a bit, not drastically, but it was not the same guy when he got to the Astros. But still, when you look at his combination of power and strikeouts and ground balls. Only 3 relievers this year can say they had 96-mile-an-hour fastball, 27% strikeout rate, and a 54% ground ball rate. And Graveman is one of those 3 pitchers. So let's break down the pros and cons of Kendall Graveman, because this guy, 1.4% home run rate in 2021, 3.6% extra base hit percentage, best hard hit percentage of his career, and a career exit velo of 35% is pretty good as well. 87.4 miles per hour on his exit velo. Excuse me. I believe I have my notes mixed up here. So let me start over with the stats for Kendall Graveman. 1.4% home run rate, 3.6% extra base hit percentage. I won't even talk about his hard hit percentage and exit velo because I'm not even sure what I wrote here, so I apologize for that. But fastball and sinker in the mid to upper 90s. He's got a slider as his main secondary pitch. He's devastating against right-handed batters, 117 average and 348 OPS allowed. ERA almost 1.5 points better in save situations. The D-backs had no closures last year, so if they could get a pitcher who's better in save situations than non-save situations, they desperately need that. 196 average and 670 OPS against with runners in scoring position. But what are the cons of a Kendall Graveman? Could be the best setup man on the market, and considering he's coming off a pretty damn good year, could get a wild offer from a team in the shadows, a dark horse team. Another con, he is a guy who reinvented himself late in his career, early 30s. All of a sudden, he's a bullpen arm, a shutdown closer. So maybe there is a little flukiness with him. You could be concerned about that because he did not look the same when he got to the Astros. 296 average and 757 OPS allowed with 2 outs and runners in scoring position. After 25 pitches, Kendall Graveman is not the same guy in a game. His OPS allowed goes from 510 to over 1,000. So basically, it becomes like double the worst pitcher. I don't even know how you would phrase that. How you would phrase that. I guess he becomes half the pitcher he originally was when he pitches over 25 pitches, and his 9% walk rate in 2021 is just not that good. But why should the D-backs bring him in? Well, I think a lot of his bad stats with the Astros were skewed by the month of August. He had a terrible month of August with the Astros. After that, September, October was actually pretty good in the Astros uniform. And this could be a guy who feels like he's just been thrown around the league from the Astros, the Mariners, to the A's. He could just feel like a guy who has never been wanted in his career. And for a D-backs team that desperately needs bullpen help, this could be a guy that's looking for a home. And the D-backs are a team that are just looking for guests to enter their home. They're looking for people to stay and buy their home. They're like, our house is for sale. We're rebuilding. We need people to come to us. So the D-backs should desperately use a Kendall Graveman, and Graveman probably wants a long-term home, some security. So the D-backs give that to him, and they both are a perfect match in heaven, in my estimation. Now, we'll go through 2 more free agent targets I think the D-backs should get, but this episode is brought to you by BetOnline. We're back and better than ever. A new web interface for the start of the basketball season, more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number 1 spot for all the basketball and football action this season. Head to our new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, baseball, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right. Let's get back into the pod. Let's continue the free agent discussion. Targets the D-backs should go after. I really wish I wish I knew I wrote for the Kendall Graveman thing. Best hard hit percentage of career and exit velo of career, 35% of. I really don't know what I wrote for that Kendall Graveman. I really tried just now, but I really don't know what I put there. So I'm sorry for that because I feel like I had a pretty good Kendall Graveman stat. I just kind of butchered it there. So I apologize, but Kendall Graveman is still a great target for the D-backs despite me butchering some of his hard contact stats. But let's move on now. Let's move on my butchering. Let's just erase that from your memory, please, because I'm known to butcher a stat or two. I have so many speech problems. I've really tried to work on it over the years, growing up, getting older. I believe I get better and better, but sometimes I slip back into my old ways. So I'm always trying to get better as a speaker, enunciator. It was something I really struggled with as a kid growing up. It's something I got a lot better with as an adult, but I still struggle to talk every now and then. So I don't even know why Locked On gave me a podcast. I don't know why I'm here. I'm only here because of my first listen people. You guys, thank you once again for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every day. You didn't even know I was going to sneak that in there, so thank you. This podcast is not possible without you. I love talking baseball, D-backs, doing this podcast, even though I have some pretty messed up speech impediments sometimes. I don't always talk the clearest. Thank you for everyone who's sticking it out with me, sticking through with me. I appreciate all my listeners out there, but now enough talking. Let's move on. Let's talk about Steven Matz now. Number 27 on the top 50 MLB free agents. Projected 3-year, $27 million deal. Red Sox, Angels, Nationals projected to be interested. I don't know the Angels anymore after that Noah Syndergaard deal, but Matz pitched well for the Blue Jays in 2021, 3.82 ERA and 29 starts. His strikeout rate and walk rate were around league average. Only 6 left-handed starters threw harder than Matz this past season. He averages 94.5 miles per hour on his sinker ball. Matz declined a reported multi-year proposal from the Blue Jays, but the Blue Jays also didn't extend him a qualifying offer. So these two teams, or not two teams, but this team and this player don't look like they're going to be reuniting after this season. So I think Matz is going to be leaving and going somewhere else. And what are the pros for why the D-backs should bring him in? He's only 30 years old. Under Strom, I think there's another level to Matz that maybe a Strom could unlock. He had a 3.82 ERA this past season, 3.79 FIP, 2.8% home run percentage, extra base hit percentage, his 2.8% home run percentage and his extra base hit percentage were the best marks since 2016. His walk percentage was his best since 2017. His 37.9% hard hit percentage was his best since his rookie season. And his strikeout rate was above 22% the last few seasons. So Steven Matz basically had his best season since like 2016, 2017, since his first couple of years in a Mets uniform. Matz was pretty much the same guy against righties and lefties, which I like to see. It depends. Again, sometimes you're just average against, a righty and then devastating against lefties. If you're pretty good on both sides, that's also okay. So again, it just depends how you look at it and what the numbers say. He has a 4-pitch arsenal to work ground balls, led by a 90-mile-an-hour sinker ball, or really a mid-90 sinker ball, 94.5 miles per hour. So Steven Matz is coming off a pretty good season, but why wouldn't the D-backs want him? Because it could have been fool's gold considering his previous ERA over over the past 4 seasons was like between a 4 and a 5 pretty much. It just wasn't that good before going to the Blue Jays the last few years. Only 31% of his starts this past season were quality starts, tied for the second worst in his career. Just didn't have a lot of quality starts. I don't know if that's because the Blue Jays didn't let him pitch deep into games. He just didn't have many starts where he had more than like 80 pitches, or not many starts where he had over 99 pitches. He just didn't pitch deep into ball games a lot. So I don't know if that was because of him not looking good or the Blue Jays. And then a 296 average and over 400 slugging percentage allowed on his sinker ball. So his go-to pitch, batters actually do damage against, we don't like to see. So there are some cons in there for Steven Matz, but overall, he has talent to be a good pitcher. He could be this year's Robbie Ray or Kevin Gausman, where you get him on a 1-year cheaper deal, and then he just exceeds expectations. It's not going to happen for every team he's on, but a team like the D-backs with the pitching coach they have now, he could unlock a Steven Matz, and he could be the steal of free agency. So if the D-backs could get him for a relatively cheap deal, they should definitely do that. Then the last guy I want to talk about today, it's kind of interesting. Avisail Garcia of the Brewers, 3-year, $36 million deal projected. Outfielder, Royals, Marlins, Rockies, projected to be interested. 24 on the top 50 free agent list. Garcia had a solid 2021 season, 115 WRC+, career best 29 home runs in 135 games. He's an average defensive player, 88th percentile in sprint speed, and most StatCast statistics like him. And the pros for a Garcia as to why the D-backs should bring him in, He's only 30 years old, not too old. A 20-plus home run guy the last few years if you prorate his seasons over 150 games. OPS over 800 in 2021. We know the D-backs don't have like anyone outside Ketel Marte who has an OPS above 800. 86 RBIs. His 86 RBIs, his 5.6% home run percentage, his 9.1% extra base hit percentage, and his 46.4 home run and his 46.4% hard hit percentage were all career highs when he played at least 100 games. His 935 OPS against righties is absolutely killer. This dude crushes right-hand pitching. OPS over 1,000 when batting fifth or sixth. I think that's really important because the D-backs OPS from the fifth or sixth spot in the lineup only around 715. 1399 OPS when ahead in the count. This dude crushes when he's ahead of the count. 294 average and 294 average with runners in scoring position. I believe his OPS is over 1,000 with runners in scoring position as well. And a 307 average and 910 OPS in the high leverage moment. So this guy is absolutely clutch, but what are the downsides? His contact percentage 68%, and his contact percentage on strikes was 77%. This dude does not make very good contact. His 57.9% swing percentage would have led the team. So basically, Garcia is a hacker. He does not make good contact, and he swings at a lot of pitches. But when he does make contact, he usually crushes the ball. 551 OPS when behind in the count. So once again, when he's ahead in the count, OPS over 1,300, but behind 550. This guy struggles when the pitcher has the advantage, which makes sense. You would think he would be worse when behind than ahead of the count, but sometimes some players keep it like maybe when he's ahead in the count, it's a 750 OPS, and when he's behind, it's like a 650 OPS. This is two different players we're talking about when he's ahead and behind in the count. And a 620 OPS against power pitchers. And what is a power pitcher? Pitchers who are in the top third of the league in strikeouts and walks. So Garcia overall, I think the D-backs should go out there and get him because even though he's a bit of a hacker, I think he could be a better version of Cole Calhoun. Whenever he barrels that ball, he usually crushes it. I don't care that he swings a lot and makes terrible contact because the D-backs, I think, were a little bit too much of a patient team. I think the D-backs didn't swing enough at pitches in 2021, so I like the fact that this guy wants to get things going. He's not afraid to swing at the first or second pitch of an at-bat. And another reason why I love Garcia, the dude is absolutely clutch, high leverage moments, runners in scoring position. He absolutely crushed it. Hard contact numbers, love him as well. So should the D-backs go after Garcia? Yes, of course. But as always, it just depends on the money. Now, that's it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Thank you to everyone who tuned in today. I'm going to try to get a guest on Thursday's pod, so wish me luck. If not, we'll continue this series of talking about the top free agents I want the D-backs to go after. Once again, thank you for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every day. This podcast is not possible without you, so thank you. Go make Locked On Bets your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Your second listen of the day, Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. And of course, as always, please, guys, please try your best to just stay safe and stay healthy out there. Deuces!